The artist of the two artworks we will be focusing on is Judy Baca, an American Chicana artist. Judy Baca is a painter, muralist, and monument builder. Her work reflects the lives and concerns of populations that have been historically disenfranchised, including women, working class, youth, elderly, LGBT, and immigration communities. Judy Baca is the founder of the Great Wall of Los Angeles, which is a landmark that is half a mile in length, making it the largest mural since 1976 and will continue to grow as the years pass by. This landmark included the help of 400 inner-city youth, 40 ethnic historians, and hundreds of community residents. The artworks from the Great Wall that will be focused on will be the mural Farewell to Rosie Riveter and Forebearers of Civil Rights.
In the mural Farewell to Rosie Riveter, we see a white woman who is depicted as a factory worker who's being sucked in by her own television. If we go back in time to the 40s, during World War II, millions of American women left their traditional roles as a housewife and entered the war industries as manual laborers and managers. This change in roles was due to the men being sent out to battle in the war, leaving behind many job openings that needed to be fulfilled in the factories. Besides having many job openings, different companies had to quickly adapt to the war and mass-produce weaponry for the soldiers who were in combat. Women were basically seen as the last resort to fulfill the high demands needed for the war. And although some women dislike this new change, others saw it as empowerment, which brought to life a role model named Rosie Riveter, which is the main character that is in this mural. Baca portrays this in her mural by painting Rosie dressed in her jumpsuit with her safety goggles and having her wrench tool right beside her. If we also pay close attention, inside the television we see a housewife-like character who is depicted in black and white. That character is the one that's using a vacuum to suck in Rosie. Judy used this to represent the post-war years when Rosie the Riveter returns to the kitchen as men returned home and reclaimed their power and position in labor. Baca illustrated this part of history when society wanted women to return back to being housewives, but many of the women actually enjoyed the workforce in manual labor than actually staying home. That is why in the mural we see resistance from Rosie. We see her physically resisting the acceptance back to her traditional role from the 1940s, which was a housewife. Now to Judy's technique. She uses bright colors and sharp edges in this mural. The bright colors make this painting vibrant and give full life to it. She uses a technique to make the main characters, or the focal point, seem three-dimensional. You can see that Judy tried this by making Rosie's body pop out of the television. Additionally, she also painted Rosie's arm outside of the boundaries of the mural to make it seem that not only is she trying to escape from the woman in the television and her role as a housewife, but she's physically trying to flee from the whole scene. In this mural, we can also see an emphasis on realism. She wanted us to pay attention to their character faces, expressions, and how they felt to evoke emotion in the viewer. Even though it focuses on realism, we can see that it has a minor surrealist influence to it by the way the woman is crawling out of the television.
The mural Forebearers of Civil Rights is an art statement based on the civil rights movement that lasted during 1954 to 1968. To start off, let's focus on the location of the mural. The mural takes place in a bus representing the Montgomery bus boycott that occurred a year after the civil rights movement started. During this time, white people would sit towards the front of the bus and people of color would sit in the back. The Montgomery bus boycott was a protest that lasted 13 months and was started the day of Rosa Parks' court hearing. If we focus on the right side of the mural, we see a woman sitting up front with a pink coat. This woman is Rosa Parks. Right above the window next to Rosa Parks, we see writing that says, "Rosa Parks refuses to give up her seat." Rosa Parks was an activist who did not give up her seat to a white male when the seats for the white people were all taken up, which resulted in her getting arrested and fined. The Montgomery bus boycott is the first large-scale demonstration against segregation. Another activist shown is Paul Robinson, and we see him in the center of the mural. Robinson was an American bass singer and actor who was also involved in the civil rights movement. Right above Paul Robinson, we see writing that quotes, "My father was a slave, and my people died to build this country, and I am going to stay here and have part of it just like you." Robinson constantly spoke out against racial injustice and was involved in politics, anti-Nazi demonstrations, performed for Allied forces during World War II, and supported Pan-Africanism. In the middle of the bust, we see Gwendolyn Brooks. Brooks is the first African American to win the Pulitzer Prize for poetry. She wrote about the constant struggles of people in her community. Towards the back, we see leaders of the African American civil rights, Dr. Martin Luther King and Dr. Ralph Bunche. Dr. Ralph Bunche took part in many speeches and publications where he delivered the message of racial prejudice being an unreasoned phenomenon. Dr. Martin Luther King was the leader of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. He was admired by many for speaking out about civil rights without using violence. He was also famous for his I Have a Dream speech, where he delivered the message of racial equality being essential for peace between all people. Moving on to the mural's details, in the window to the left we see a female holding up a platform with houses. This symbolizes that people of color are the backbone to this country and represents the message of the civil rights movement, it being that people of color deserve equal rights and are a part of this earth just as much as people with privilege. This mural to me is historical and can be a lesson to people that are not informed about these activists. Moving on to the artwork style, the mural is colorful and is three-dimensional. Judy Baca uses lines to make the bust be 3D and uses chiaroscuro modeling. Chiaroscuro modeling is a technique of the effect of lights and darkness in artwork. The shadows and highlights in the ceiling of the bust make the ceiling appear round. The highlights in the windows make the windows appear shiny and can have the effect of reflection. As for the clothing, the lights create the illusion of volume, mass, and depth. Overall, both murals discussed use the style of social realism.
As we discussed in the two murals, you can see that Judy's style is social realism with three-dimensional features. In both of the artworks that we looked at, Baca wants us to focus on the way that the characters are positioned and what the character's face expresses to elicit a response from her viewers. Judy Baca has utilized public art to generate civic dialogue, and by doing so, it has helped to raise community consciousness. She has always demonstrated to be an ally to minorities by illustrating their stories on sites where all people can see them. By putting her work in public spaces, it shows she is determined to educate people about historical and political events. Baca continuously shows in her work that she does not want history to be forgotten, and for that same reason, she now teaches art and Chicano study classes at UCLA at the age of 70. We can say that Judy Baca has gone through discrimination herself and understands and empathizes with her community. And much like the muralist Diego Rivera, Judy continues to give back to her community because she wants everyone to be able to enjoy her work without really worrying about being able to afford the fee. Judy's murals induces one to think back about our history and learn about issues and people that we may have never heard about with her bright colors and strong political messages. Overall, her works are eye-catching but also have a strong meaning behind it that will resonate with her viewer's mind.